Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So we keep having awesome people on. Today's guest is no exception. Steve Gamlin is joining us. He's got a great story to tell. Like always, a great story doesn't mean just great things. He's dealt with some really difficult things. He talks very candidly and very eloquently about those things. He was in the radio and broadcasting business, became a stand-up comedian, was a motivational speaker, met the love of his life later in life after a failed marriage. And he has a visualization company that can really help you not only figure out what direction you want to go, but how to get there. And he's going to walk us through that as well. So, without any further ado, let's bring Steve on to the channel now. So, Steve, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Totally. Yeah. So, Steve and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago. It turns out one thing we have in common is he still lives in the Granite State, and I lived in the Granite State for about 15 years. And great place for those that haven't been to New Hampshire. You're missing out. You're missing out on a lot.
Yeah.
It's a cool place, and I loved my time there. So we bonded over that, among other things.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So Steve's got a great story to tell. It's not always fun. It's not always awesome. Welcome to life. That's how life works. But his message is great. He's developed a program that he's going to talk to us about. He's going to share some of his experience that led him through his life to develop that program. And, he's a very captivating guy, very well spoken. And so you're not only going to get a great message, you're not only going to learn a lot, but you're going to be very entertained through the conversation. And regular listeners, that entertainment's not going to come from me. It's coming from Steve up in New Hampshire. So, with that said, why don't we start with your first life, your life in radio broadcasting, and kind of take us through that a little bit?
Yeah. At age 24, I finally got into the radio industry, following up on a dream I'd had when I was 11 years old, when I wanted to be like my hero, Dr. Johnny Fever on WKRP in Cincinnati. So I graduated college with a business degree, what my dad used to love to call summa cum this close in 1990. And a couple of years later, totally adrift and no idea what I wanted to do with my life, a friend asked me, why didn't you ever follow your dream of being on the radio? Because I was always the one who put together the music for the parties. I knew more about music trivia than anybody else, and I'd wanted to do it. So I finally got into the radio industry, and that friend passed away, unfortunately, 3 weeks after I got my first job. But
Mm.
he taught me a lesson that when other people believe in you, even when you don't, listen to those people. So I worked 15 years worth of hours over the decade I was in the radio industry, burnt myself into the ground, and led to a gigantic collapse when I was about 35 years old. But radio was a blast. I wish I had this voice when I was on the radio because I didn't. This is just a result of me just being myself. So here we are.
I love it. I love it. What did you do? Maybe it's easier to say what you didn't do in the radio business, but walk us through a little bit what you did and some of the challenges that you experienced in the broadcasting business.
Yeah, I started off as a copywriter for sub-minimum, sub-poverty wages in the fall of 1992. But what I wanted to do was be part of the morning show on this particular station. It was just north of Boston. It was a station called WCGY. And the host, Mike Morin, Morin in the Morning was the name of the show, pulled me aside one day because we were talking in the hall. And he said, I don't know if it will ever happen here because they don't spend a dime. But someday I would love to have you produce my show. I love your attitude. I love your work ethic. I think your humor is really good. I like your personality, and you're a good, humble guy. And someday I'd like to work with you. 6 months later, the station actually spent a couple of bucks and refurbished a studio that was in between the on-air studio and the production studio. That became the morning show room, and I was on the other side of the glass running the board for the show. I was writing comedy. I was writing parodies. I was doing everything you heard that was not a live voice because I didn't have the guts to be on the microphone yet. That feeling actually lasted 8 years by the time I hit my third group of radio stations. Now, something happened 2 years after I started at my first radio station. They came in one day and said, hey, very exciting news coming up. the station's being sold. The new owner's going to put a whole bunch of money into the radio station. What I found out a few days later was that money used to be my salary because we all got fired. A few months later, I landed a gig as just a full-time rock radio morning show producer, my dream gig at a station I'd grown up listening to. That lasted 3 years. And then someone came in one day and said, hey, we got some great news. The station's being sold and the new owner's going to pump a bunch of money into it. Well, it took 3 weeks this time, but we got fired right after our show one day. And as a delightful parting gift, I climbed up into the drop-in ceiling and left a platter of dried horse manure for the next occupants of the office. 8 months of very dark and depressing time, basically shut away in my living room. Later, I landed a gig at a group of stations in the Lakes region of New Hampshire as a copywriter again, but wound up taking one of the stations off satellite and making it live and made it one of the best classic rock stations we've ever heard of. Until one day somebody came in and said, hey, did you hear the news? Scott, the owner's going through a divorce and he might have to sell the radio station.
Oh, Jesus.
And I went, I'm done. Screw this. And I was married at the time. I gave my notice, quit my job, walked away from a successful radio career with only a part-time weekend DJ business, DJing weddings. That was making about $11,500 a year. And I quit my full-time job without a plan, which led to my divorce, which led to me at age 35 living at my dad's house where we had just built a recording studio in his basement. I'd wiped out a $30,000 business line of credit, had no way to pay it back at the time, and was $62,000 total in debt, and just blew everything apart. And that led to everything I've enjoyed ever since. So apparently you've got to hit rock bottom, be handed a shovel, dig a little deeper, and to come back. But the funny part is people after now they say, Steve, you rose from the ashes like the mighty Phoenix. I'm like, hang on there, cowboy. My Phoenix rides a pogo stick. I have burnt my tail feathers off several times over ever since, but they grow back and I just keep flying higher every time.
I love that message. And, so Steve, one of the things I do is just every once in a while interject to make sure the listeners don't miss some of the key themes that we talk about over and over and over again. Right. So some of you are too young. Steve and I are not. We're close to the same age. Some of you are too young. What it means is sound like a broken record. So back in the day, when there was a phonograph, it had a little needle on an arm and the record turned around and around. If there was a scratch on the record, it would repeat. It would get to that scratch when it was playing the record. It would repeat over and over and over again. So in Steve's world, the radio station's being sold sounds like a broken record. That means Steve's looking for a job at some point in the immediate future, right? So he keeps going back. He keeps taking his shots. He keeps going back, keeps taking his shots. And it's important because the last time he just says, fuck it. I'm done. Like I'm not doing this shit anymore. Burns it down, runs up a bunch of debt, doesn't have a plan. Not laughing at Steve, I'm laughing at the situation because any of us that are of a certain age have similar experiences in our life. The story itself might be different, but you wind up in a spot where you're like, how the fuck did I get here? Like seriously, how did I fuck up my life this bad? What the fuck is going on? Right. So that's where we're at. And that's what Steve's alluding to. So he's got a lot more great stuff to talk about here. Some more shitty stuff too, but welcome to life. So here you are, you're 35, you're living with your dad, you've run up a bunch of debt, you got no future, you got no, it's literally, what is that? Dumb and Dumber. We got no jobs, we got no food, our pants are falling off, right? So that's,
Yep.
that's where
Classic.
you're at. You pick it up from there.
Yeah. And this was the early 2000s. And I just stumbled along for a while. Luckily, I had picked up an agent for my DJ business, and he tripled my business in about 2 years. So at least, not that I could pay all my bills, but at least I could survive for a bit and breathe a little bit. It didn't stop the depression and the self-deprecation. I mean, my self-talk back then, I may as well have been wearing a cup 24/7 because I was swinging a wrecking ball at myself all day long verbally. Just hating on myself before I realized the importance of self-talk, which I now know and respect. But at the time, according to some of my journal entries, I referred to myself as Hurricane Dumbass Category 5, based on what I had done in my life. And in August of 2003, on a very, very hot and humid Friday afternoon, I had $3 left in my pocket. I didn't have a gig that night. Was really down on myself. And I drove past this mini golf place that had a driving range. And I figured, well, I can get a big bucket of golf balls and just whack the crap out of them and at least get some frustrations out. Because it's probably a sane and it's certainly economical way to get all your frustrations out without getting arrested for damaging stuff. And I'm a horrible golfer. I suck at golf. And that's not self-deprecating. That's a fact.
No,
So I went to the farthest tee box on the property, like right up against the hurricane fencing, so I wouldn't dent any cars in the parking lot. And I was underneath this long row of steel-towered power lines. So it's hot and humid. You lived in New Hampshire. It's hot and humid. What happens when it's really super hot and humid? A thunderstorm happens.
That's right.
Yeah.
You bet.
So I spent an hour in a thunderstorm, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, barefoot in the wet grass, under steel-towered power lines, whacking the crap out of my bucket of golf balls and the buckets of two guys who ran from the storm and never came back. And at one point, I actually held the club up in the air and just spun it in a slow circle and said, go ahead. I friggin' dare you. Go ahead. And nothing happened. So I finished hitting the golf balls. So at the end of the hour, I pack up all my stuff. I could barely lift my arms. I get out to my car and I open the door. The rain stops and the sun kind of starts poking through a couple cracks in the black clouds in the sky. And I just thought that was funny as hell. I started laughing. I just look up. Well played. The next day, I was on a phone call with a brand new life coach I just started working with. And he said, how was your week? And I told him, put down your pen and listen to this. And as funny as I could make it sound, it was brutally self-deprecating. But as funny as I could make it sound, I told him the story of that hour and how pathetic I was and how much my life sucks and how the sun had come out at the end of that hour. And when he stopped laughing, which is something you should not do when you're coaching somebody whose life sucks, he said, I got two questions for you. Are you this open and honest about your life with pretty much anybody? I said, oh, yeah, all the time. Usually self-deprecating, but yeah. He said, all right. Have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? I think you'd be really good at both. And what he did not know was when I was 11 years old, I had 4 goals. The first was to be a radio DJ. The second was to be a stand-up comedian. The third was to be an author of my own books. And the fourth was to be a teacher of people, but not in a classroom. And for him to have seen that and asked that question, kind of like my other friend who said, why didn't you ever get into radio? You'd be good at it. I said, I've wanted to do both of those things since I was a kid, but I have no idea how to pursue it. On his desk, this is how the universe works. On his desk, in his junk mail pile, was a brochure for a local community college that 2 weeks later had a class starting called Intro to Stand-Up Comedy.
In his junk mail. In his junk mail
on his desk. It was sitting there. He says, will you go? I said, hell yeah, get me the number. All right. And then he asked, have you ever heard of Toastmasters? I said, well, I've kind of heard the name. They teach you how to, be a speaker or something. He says, yeah, you got the stories and you get the style. He said, just go work on your tools a little bit and learn how to craft stories. He said, there's a group that meets every Friday morning at 7, one town away from you. And by the way, they're one of the most award-winning groups in New Hampshire. Go check out a meeting. I went to a meeting and I wound up staying for 8 years and won a bunch of competitions and had a ball and learned a ton. So be very, very aware. Whatever you're doing, as stupid as you might think it is, there might just be an opportunity there if you survive it to go somewhere in your life just based on a conversation that you have with somebody, just being open and honest and vulnerable and authentic about yourself. And I still laugh to this day. Sometimes people will say, hey, Steve, how do you make up those stories you share on stage? And I tilt my head like a puppy and I just stare at them and say, have you not been paying attention the past 20 plus years? All I got to do is have a pen with ink in it and I'm all set, man. I've been journaling for 44 years at this point. So believe me, I got the stories and I got the open and honest versions. I just, you add a couple adverbs and adjectives now and then, but the star character is me the whole way, for better or for worse.
It's your own personal Truman Show.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So you wound up doing some stand-up comedy, didn't you?
I did. I did stand up for 7 years, and I never really got much about. I did a lot of open mics, but I did shows all over New England. Hopped on a train from Boston to New York City a couple of times. Which, if ever you're going to do stand up comedy in New York City, do not wear what you usually wear in Boston, which is a Red Sox jersey, which was the
Oh,
dumbest move I ever made. Didn't do it to be a jerk. I just did it because that's what I always wore when I went to Boston to do
yeah.
shows. And I was the first time I went there, it was at the Comedy Cellar in New York. And I was comic number 32 of 34. The audience was drunk, exhausted, and mad at the guy that went on before me. And then they introduced me. And I went up there, and some guy goes, "Hey, Boston." And I rattled off how many World Series we had won in a couple of years. And he goes, "Yeah, we got 27. Get back to your stuff." And I said, I just broke out of character. I said, "You know what, y'all? I did not wear this to insult you or, say anything bad about the Yankees. Matter of fact, I got a ton of respect for the Yankees. Jeter and Posada could have played alongside Gehrig and Ruth." I said, "So nothing but respect." And they were great to me after that because they knew I
Yeah.
was just an idiot, not a guy who was there trying to be a jerk.
Yeah. But there it is again, genuineness, right? If you're just genuine, usually things will work out. If you are who you are, most people will accept that. And I would
Yep.
say the ones that won't accept it, fuck them. Who cares? Like I don't care. Fine with
Yep.
me.
Yep. Yep. I just move on despite them, not to spite them. Like some people say, "Screw them, I'm gonna stick it up their butt." Nope. I just move along despite other people like that, not to spite them. And
Yeah.
I used to be spiteful like that back in my radio days. There was a guy, man, we butted heads for 4 years. And had I not done that, maybe I would have still stayed in radio a little bit longer. But part of the me leaving was the exhaustion of just fighting all the time.
Yeah. It's funny. I tell people a lot, you got to let that stuff go. And it's something that right, wrong, or indifferent, that's always come very naturally to me. I've never been a grudge holder,
Yep.
or kind of and look, Michael Jordan made a career out of using the slights that were made against him and using them to motivate himself to do what he did. So
Yep.
I get it. There is a school of thought that says you can do what Steve just talked about, which is I'm going to use that as fuel to move forward. And if that's your thing, that's your thing. No judgments. Not my thing. However,
Yeah.
I will say that holding a grudge is the best way I've heard it described is it's like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. Like
Yep.
the only thing you're doing is hurting yourself. The
Yep.
person that you're holding the grudge against almost inevitably doesn't give a shit that you're holding the grudge. They don't care. And
Yep.
you're wasting your time and energy on that stuff. So it's just useless energy. It's wasted energy. And I strongly recommend against it for what it's worth. So
Yep.
what did you on the stand up? I know you used kind of personal anecdotes and things like that. What did you enjoy the most about the stand up comedy?
I love connecting with people's eyes during a show. Same thing I love about speaking.
Mm.
And the greatest thing, and I think in 7 years of comedy, I think I grossed a total of $350 divided over 7 years. But there were two instances that I remember, and they were essentially the same, but I'll give you the one that touched my heart even more. I wasn't even supposed to be on the bill at this one show. It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, a club I used to love to play. And I showed up to watch the show because all my friends were on the bill. And I was just there having a drink. And the guy that was watching the door came over and said, "Hey, the opening guy is running like 15, 20 minutes late. Can you go up there and do a set?" I said, "Sure." I mean, it's hometown crowd. Maybe somebody might know me. And so I get up there. I think I did about 10 minutes or so. I had a really good time. The crowd was awesome. They were great, super generous with their laughter. And at the end of the show, one of the things I used to love to do, no matter where I was, I would stand near the door and just thank everybody for coming to the show and just shake hands and just be appreciative that they were there.
Sure.
And two women came over to me and said, "We loved you. But even more important," they said, "See that woman over there putting on her coat?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "That's our friend." Something really bad had happened to her life. I think she had lost somebody close to her a few months prior. She said, "This is the first night she's come out with us in a long time. And this is the first time we've heard her laugh. And you made her laugh. So we want to say
Mm.
thank you."
Wow.
And I was just floored and emotional and just, I wasn't supposed to be on the stage that night, but of course I was, in the universe's plan, God, whatever higher power you choose to believe in. I was supposed to be at the club at the time that the opening guy was running late so that the person who knew me could ask me if I could go up there and help them by just eating up a little stage time while they waited for the first guy. And then that reaction at the end of the evening confirmed that I was supposed to be up there. So no matter where I am at any given time, if I can add value in some way, say yes when the opportunities come up.
Wow, what a great story and powerful message too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the second one? You said there was two. That was one.
Yeah, it was very similar. It was a gentleman and his wife who, at the time, I mean, we're probably my age. I'm 57 now, and I was just some snot-nosed punk in his mid to late 30s. And he came up to me at the end of the show and said, I had to beg my wife to come out to this show tonight. We went to dinner and a show. It's our anniversary. And I just want to thank you so much. You gave her the biggest laugh of her night with something you said on stage. And I guess what it turned out to be was I used to do a bit called The Sex Referee, where I had a whistle and a yellow flag tucked away in my pocket. And I just talked about the difference between men and women. And I had this play designed that, she did something wrong we didn't like. So we threw a flag, and
Yeah.
he just thought that was the funniest damn thing in the world. I can't even remember the whole bit now. I haven't done it in so long, but he just thought that was the funniest thing. And what he loved most is how much it made his wife laugh
Yeah.
on their
That's
anniversary.
awesome.
So they would have this great memory of the time they went out for their anniversary to dinner and a comedy show, and that opening act who made her laugh. So it doesn't matter where you are on the bill. You just work real, real hard to deliver, no matter if you're the opening act or the headliner. It doesn't matter. I used to love to outwork the headliners, and not in a
Yeah.
mean, spiteful way, but just, I said, my picture's not on this wall. I used to have a whole bit about this. I'd say, you know what? Tonight's headliner, picture up on the wall. The middle guy tonight, picture up on the wall. I'm the opening guy. My picture's not on the wall. And I always kept in my back pocket a napkin with a stick figure with a big shaggy mop of hair, which I had at the time. And I would tape it to the curtain on the back wall. And I would forget to take it down. So even when all the headliners were up there, my picture was still on the wall.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's good stuff. So the Toastmasters, um what was the best life experience or learning that you got from your time at Toastmasters?
I once drove 7.5 hours to speak for 6.5 minutes to win a competition in the Humorously Speaking competition, a story about my father's dead dog and the myths of pet cremation, to win the whole damn thing out of all Toastmasters in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, just by being myself and bringing humor to what could have been a sad story.
Mm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And look, I think humor is so important. If you don't have a sense of humor, like it's gonna be a tough life for you. It just is
Yeah.
because life kicks us all in the teeth at some point. It doesn't matter whether you want it to or not. It's funny because we recorded an episode earlier today, and the guy we had on, great guy. Like we appreciate you coming on. Love it. You're just one in a long line of just high quality individuals who've been good enough to come and talk to our audience and share their stories with them. And he said the same thing. He was an immigrant from Romania, moved to the United States, built a career for himself, and then really burned out and really kind of questioned what am I doing this for? Like, what is this all about? And he too is now a speaker, and he has a course, and just as he really wants to help people. Like, and it's so funny how when you focus externally, it actually helps you as much or more than the people that you reach out to. And we see that theme over and over and over again with the great people that we have in our podcast, that their lives really kind of take off and really flourish when they start looking, what can I do for others instead of what's in it for me? And I think it takes some time and maturity for all of us to get there. But when you do, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
And I love you sharing your stories about it. That's great.
Thank you. That was also the trip I learned not to joke with the border guards.
tell,
Apparently,
tell us about that. Yeah.
Apparently, it triggers them when you are a male traveling alone with no luggage whatsoever, planning to return in the other direction the next day because
Mm,
they think it's either trafficking or drugs or something like that.
sure.
And they also do not appreciate the fact that I was on a humor quest because the gentleman said, "Sir, do you plan to bring anything back into America?" I said, "Yeah, hopefully a trophy." And he said, "Sir, why don't you pull your car over there to
Oh,
the
good
spot
Lord.
in front of the building?" So my car is getting searched. They send me inside. A somewhat nicer young lady is behind the bulletproof glass and says, "Do you have anything to prove why you're here?" I said, "Well, I'm here for a Toastmasters competition." And she said, "Well, all your friends came up yesterday. What are you doing?" I said, "I had to work last night." And she was understanding. And she said, "Sir, is there anything you have that proves why you're here?" I said, "Well, I've got my speech notes. They're in my
Yeah.
car. You want me to get them?" And she goes, "Would you mind?" I said, "No, no problem at all." So I go back out. They have already searched my car and found nothing. So I bring my notes in. I slide them under the slot in her bulletproof glass and she picks them up. And of course, I can't resist. I said, "Wait a second. Did the other competitors tell you to take those notes and shred them so I can't win the competition?" She looks at me, she rolls her eyes, she slides it back under the glass and says, "Sir, good luck."
You're going to need it.
And off I went. And I was very blessed to win the competition. And I was just dead broke at the time. So I didn't even have the money to go to the dinner where they give out the awards. I was 30 seconds away from being out the front door of that building to go to KFC one town away. And three ladies who had traveled up from my Toastmasters chapter, I call them my Toast sisters. One of them comes running out, "Where's Steve?" And somebody goes, He's leaving to go get some dinner." And one of them yells, "He can't leave." She wouldn't say why. She knew I had won, but they couldn't say anything because she was part of the committee. So they came and got me. They handed me somebody else's dinner ticket, somebody who didn't show up, and said, "Shut up and come eat." I want to go to KFC. They said, "Shut up and come eat." And it turned out the reason they did that was because I had won and they wanted me to be there to enjoy it.
So you won and you got a free dinner out of the deal. I mean, life's
And I
good at
got a
that
free
point,
meal.
right?
And I crashed on somebody's floor. And first thing the next morning, I was driving back over the border, hands at 10 and 2, trophy in the passenger seat, riding shotgun with a seatbelt around it. "Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful day, sir. Goodbye, sir." And back home.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I have a very similar irreverent sense of humor. So, um, remember in the early 90s, there was a couple of deaths at a Jack in the Box from E. coli. It was, one of those things that's happened over time. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
happened to be living in Reno, Nevada at the time where there was a Jack in the Box. And so I thought it would be funny the next time I went to Jack in the Box. I thought it was a lot funnier than they did. I pulled up through the drive-through and it was late at night. It was like 11 o'clock and I was the only one there. And they're like, "Well, can start your order, please?" And I was like, "I'd like 5 E. coli burgers, please." They got pissed. They were like,
Oh,
"Get out of here." I'm like, "Well, I haven't
man.
ordered yet. I'm just kidding around." They're like, "We're not serving you." I'm like, "Come on. You couldn't have that many customers left. I'm one of them. Let's go." They gave me the boot. They
Wow.
gave me the boot at Jack. I got kicked out of Jack in the Box, for goodness sakes.
Wow. That's now this was TikTok before TikTok. We didn't even have like the capacity to do that yet. And you just completely destroyed some of the stuff that people are out there faking right now. So well played.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was something else. So yeah, you talked about earlier, you had talked about your first marriage ending through this whole process. And I know you wound up getting reconnected with someone after that. How did that all take place?
Yeah, that was, let's see, I got divorced officially in summer of 2003. And that's really when I started to speaking and doing a lot of journaling and writing and watching the DVD version of The Secret that had just come out because I've been on a personal development journey since I was 21 years old.
Yep.
And very interested and fascinated by the law of attraction, especially this one guy named John Assaraf, two-thirds of the way through the DVD, is talking about this thing called the vision board. And I thought that was really fascinating because it was creative, it was goal driven, it was positive. Now, I didn't buy anybody else's programs. I rarely do. I just want to learn stuff on my own and figure out a way that works for me. And I decided that one of the things that I wanted most in my life, the biggest goal, I only wanted to fall in love one more time in my life. Now, at this time, late 30s. And in January of 2007, I made that year's vision board, and I had pictures of couples enjoying the type of relationship I wanted to have. Man and a woman walking, holding hands on a beach, standing at the railing of a ship at sunset, laughing in the kitchen, making a meal together. One guy piggybacking his lady through a brook so she wouldn't get all wet, and they're just laughing. And I said, these are all the types of relationship that I want to have.
Mm.
And in early June of that year, of '07, I wrote in my journal, I am ready to fall in love. I'd done 3+ years worth of work on myself, writing and reading and journaling and just thinking. And I said, I'm ready to fall in love. And on June 16th, 2007, I got an email from someone named Tina that I almost deleted as spam. And thank God the thundering herd of squirrels in my head, each with their own harmonica, distracted me and then reminded me to go back and look at it. It turned out it was from a girl named Tina Wajula that I'd gone to high school with and hadn't seen her talk to in 21 years. And we'd been great friends in high school, super close. Had a crush on her, but never had the guts to ask her out. And she was reaching out to me and she said, hey, I live in Florida now. I've been down here for a while and I saw you online and I thought I'd reach out and we should stay in touch. And I answered back and she answered back with her phone number and I called her a couple days later. First thing out of her mouth in 21 years, it's about time you called. Still sarcastic, still funny, still just this amazing energy. And over the course of the following 4 weeks, she would not send me a picture of herself, nor did she even have a social media footprint. I couldn't even Google her and find anything. Start texting and emails and phone calls almost daily. And I'm starting to have feelings for her again and remember how much I really liked her. And about 4 weeks after the initial email, she sent me a text. And I was DJing at a wedding where I wasn't even supposed to be originally. Another DJ got sick and my agent sent me there. And she sent the text and it said, can I tell you something if you promise not to freak out? And I texted back, sure. Here's how I really felt about you in high school. Here's how I felt when I sent the email. Here's how I felt when you answered back, when I heard your voice. Here's how I feel right now. 143. And I had to do a quick Google search. That is text for I love you. 1 letter,
Mm.
4 letters, 3 letters. So I quick looked it up and I typed back, I love you too. And that love lasted 17 and a half years until she passed away last December 9th, unexpectedly. So I got to be in love with this woman for 6,386 days. And everything
Mm.
that was on my vision board of the type of relationship I wanted to have, we had. We went on several cruises together. We held hands everywhere. I could not walk past her without touching her. Even to just put my hand on her shoulder or just run my fingers through her hair or a hug or something. We held hands everywhere. We knew each other's love language. And the best part about that is we both spoke it fluently and just had the most incredible 17 and a half years that I'm very blessed. And everything I do from here on out goes to fulfill a promise I made to her during a very dark time about 3.5 years ago. In a short window of time, I had 3 deaths of people very close to me, including my dad. COVID wiped out both of my event-based businesses, all my speaking and my DJ business. And Tina believed in me when I didn't. And she asked me one day, can this be the year that you get famous again so that I can look for a less stressful job?
Mm.
I said, baby, I'm trying. And it was just stop and start and frustration and everything and depression and all of that. So everything I do now moving forward is to live up to that promise that I made to her when she believed in me when I did not believe in myself because she was my biggest fan. And even the night before she died, we had a very open and authentic and vulnerable and hand-holding and loving conversation about how we both just felt so lucky. Even sometimes that we maybe didn't deserve all the greatness that we had in our lives. And I said it, and then she said it, and then we agreed we're a team, and we're just going to support each other. And even if it's just us, to cheer each other on and be there for each other. And that was the most amazing final conversation because she passed away the next morning.
Wow. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
So 21 years, you both have have a lot of life experience under the belt. She reaches out, you guys have your conversations and realize, hey, this is real. This is super real for
Yeah.
us. You lived in New Hampshire at the time, right? Still?
Yeah. Yeah. I was
And
still here in New Hampshire,
she's in
and
Florida.
she was in Florida. Yeah.
So what'd you
And
guys do from there?
well, let's see, that was July. In August, she flew up to New Hampshire because her grandmother was having surgery. And I got to see her for the first time in 21 years and just melted when I saw
Mm,
her. Just more beautiful than ever, and even better, beautiful inside and out.
yeah.
And we just both knew. And when she went back to Florida, her then coworkers, who were dear friends of hers, reached out to me after Tina passed away and said, "We knew when she came back from that trip to see you, she was gone. She was going to be with you somehow." And
Mm.
word got around, and her company, she worked for Gannett Media, who owns USA Today, and a couple hundred local newspapers around the country. Well, Tina was working at just one of those local properties in Melbourne, Florida. The company created a job for her at another newspaper location in Burlington, Vermont,
Oh yeah.
which is only 2 hour and 20-minute drive from where I was at the time. They created the position, gave her a raise, paid for her to move, put her up in a hotel for a month so she could find an apartment and get settled. And when she got that opportunity, she reached out to me and asked, "Is this that law of attraction thing you talk about?" And I said, "Well, give me the details." And she said, this. I said, "Babe, that's the law of attraction on steroids."
Right.
I said, "You wanted to come back to New England, but did not want to quit your job because she had been with the company for a few years at that point." I said, "That's absolutely law of attraction." She was up there for 4 years and then said, "Babe, I only get to see you, once a week, once every other week for a couple of days." She goes, "I'd really rather just be in New Hampshire with you." What happens? Word gets around that she's interested in that. Somebody from corporate has been observing the work she's done and how amazing she is as an employee, handpicks her to work for a team that oversees digital marketing strategies for half of the country for the company, and says, "You can live in New Hampshire with Steve. You just might have to travel once or twice a month, but otherwise you can work remotely. So go be with Steve."
Wow.
And that was her position from 2012 up until she passed away.
That's great.
No.
Yeah, it's so funny how it falls into place when it's right, isn't it?
Yeah. And she saw the opportunity and didn't just get scared and run from it saying, "I'm not good enough." I mean, everyone has imposter syndrome at some time. And we all have self-doubt at some time. And if you say
Sure.
you never do, you're lying because it's just part of the wiring, I believe. But I cheered her on. She cheered me on. And we just kept going and growing and showing up for each other. And each time she rose up and rose up. And oh my gosh, when she passed away, we were in England when she passed away. So it was another month before the funeral. I mean, it was agonizing just trying to get us
Mm,
both home. Her boss and her two closest team members all flew up for one day just so they could pay respects to Tina at her celebration of life.
wow.
And her boss told me, because every Friday Tina would lead a sales call of a couple of hundred people, and Tina would kind of be in charge of the call and narrate the call and run the slides and everything. And her boss had to do it that Friday and said, "Steve, I had two screens full of grown men in a big, gigantic Zoom room bawling their eyes out
Mm,
because of how much they loved and respected her." So if you ever wonder what you have for impact in this world, you get a lot more than you give yourself credit for. If you just go out and be a really good human being, you might be amazed at how the world responds because we never know where the ripples go. And she sent ripples out into the world in every direction on a regular basis that she was not even aware of. Because I'm still, over 6 months later, still hearing from people who are sharing their favorite Tina stories.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you weren't surprised, but it's got to just make you feel good to hear all the stories about the lives that she touched and all that positive energy that she left in the world.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good tears. And Tina was one of the founding members of my family's 501(c)(3). It's called Beach Bum Philanthropy. And we are on an acts of kindness mission. And what we do is we work with other nonprofits who are helping out communities already in need, like the homeless and homeless veterans and families and single moms who are getting back on their feet. So we work with these local nonprofits. Tina was a founding member, and we've since established a couple of different giving projects in her name, which have been amazing. And I included Beach Bum in Tina's obituary. And we said, if you'd like to send flowers, flowers are more than welcome. We would love it if you would commit an act of kindness, a simple act of kindness. Yeah, when I started speaking, it was very simple. And over the first decade of the 2000s, I was talking as social media came about. I was talking about these wins and these amazing things I was creating in my own life, and that's what people started to ask me to speak on and to help them out with. As I was learning it, I was taking notes and crafting stories about it, sharing the wins and sharing the things I was learning. And people started to say, "Hey, Steve, I saw you talk about this on Facebook. Hey, we got a company meeting. Can you come in and inspire our team?" Or, "Hey, Steve, we want to have a vision board party." I said, "Well, I don't do vision board parties. Vision boards are not arts and crafts projects. They are very scientifically designed." I don't talk about the science and I don't talk in a woo woo way, man. I am blue
Mm,
collar woo. I'll show you how to roll up your sleeves. I'll hand you the tools and we'll build something together.
yeah.
That approach started to get me to become very well known for the vision board work, the vision board coaching that I work with people, individuals, company teams, even sometimes families and couples on helping them to craft the vision for what they want to create in their life. And the biggest thing that I say, which really sets me apart, vision boards are not about what you get, they're about who you become along the way. And especially people, my target audience is between the ages of 35 and 60. Late teens and 20s, they do not want to hear what I have to say because they haven't messed their lives up enough yet. They're still they're still aiming for what I call the vision board starter kit, which is the Lamborghini, the yacht, the private jet, the mansion, the helicopter, the big honking gold watch, and the bank vault full of gold bars and piles of cash.
Sure, yeah.
Nothing wrong with any of those things. But when I see one of those, I ask them, all right, who do you want to become? Who are you in all of this? Is this what you really want, or is this just what some other motivational guru told you success is all about? Is this what you've been seeing on videos on YouTube and TikTok about what success really is? Who do you really want to be? And then most people say, well, I don't know. Like, well, go live life a little more and figure it out. But in the meantime, what you have here is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But make sure it's what you really want
Yeah.
and figure out why you want it. I mean, and I was talking with one of my, a guy I'm working with right now to rebrand a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. And he said, I've never heard anybody talk about vision boards the way you talk about them. And he's not super familiar with my stuff, which is good because he's getting it now firsthand. He said, Steve, everybody else says, have a vision, have a vision, have a vision. Your program actually walks people through every single step you went through in your life from where you are now to where you want to be just 1 year from now, to understanding why with a deep emotional connection to everything you want. What does it look like, feel like, sound like, smell like, taste like? Create the story, the narrative for all of this, what it's going to be like when you achieve it, and then figure out the action plan to get there and figure out tracking systems too, so you can check your progress along the way to know how close you're getting. So what I've got is a nuts and bolts approach to it in a very systematic way. You just plug in what you want. I'm not going to tell you what success is. You got to figure that out for yourself. And I also teach it in 8 major areas of life. I use a life wheel, pretty standard tool in personal development. I've tweaked it to the way that I teach things. So I say one goal each: your physical health, your emotional well being. Imagine that, setting goals for the emotions you want to feel. Your your closest relationships, what do you want them to be like? Your core values that guide everything you think, speak, and say, or think, speak, and do. Your faith, which is very similar, but the authority and energy comes from a higher source. Your connection with people in a real way. And boy, didn't that take a beating during the pandemic with all the loneliness, depression, and addiction.
Hmm.
And then your work and your money. Now, all eight of those things are happening 24/7. So, wouldn't it be a good idea to have an idea of what you want all those things to look like in your life just 1 year from now? Don't start with the 20-year thing. You're going to scare the crap out of yourself and you're going to quit and fall back to your old habits. 1 year. Know where you are now, know where you want to be a year from now. Figure out a way to get there and understand why you want it. And that's the approach that I take. Where so many other people are throwing these big flashy things all over a board and hoping for the best. You know what most people are doing? They're watching TV when Powerball hits $1 billion saying, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to be rich. I'm manifesting, I'm manifesting, I'm manifesting. And then you ask him, did you buy a ticket? Nah, I'll never win. So it's about time your ass and your couch get a divorce and you start taking some action. Even little ones per day are going to create momentum. And you hardwire better habits, you build confidence, you build momentum, and you might be amazed at how far you get. I mean, just look at the relationship I got to have with Tina for 6,386 days. All came from me knowing exactly what I wanted to have in a relationship and working hard and not thinking 50-50, but thinking 100-100. And I'm very blessed that she did as well. So that's the approach I take when I talk about visualization and vision boards and manifesting. It's not this cosmic woo-woo thing. It's actually got a lot of science behind it. People like Dr. James Doty and Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about the scientific side of it. I talk about the practical side of it, how to take tools and use them. That's why I call it blue collar woo. It's basic steps, but you got to do them consistently to create the results you want.
So I'm familiar with vision boards, but I've never done one. Can you describe, like when you initiate someone, when you start up with them, describe that to our audience so they get a flavor for what it is you're talking about?
Yeah, vision board to me, it's a wall-mounted GPS for the rest of your life. And what I encourage people to do is to find pictures that represent what it is they are looking to create in their life for each of those categories I mentioned from the life wheel. Now, it can be pictures, it can be words, it can be, I create a lot of hashtags with my clients because it's something memorable and catchy and it becomes a battle cry for them. What I encourage you to do is figure out which goal is most important to you or what category is most important in your life. Put that in the center. Now, for me, it was always love. It was always a picture of me and Tina.
Mm.
Work outward from there as to, what is closely aligned with that, whether it's, vacations or I took a picture one time of me giving Tina a foot rub, her foot in my hand. Tina did not like having her picture taken, but she let me take a picture with her foot. There's a picture of my hand giving her foot a foot rub on one of my vision boards to remember to do that every single night for her. So it's all of these pictures I usually use a foam board. It's like 14 by 17. Some people use huge poster boards. Some people just have a little picture frame with one picture in it. That's okay. But create a visual representation of where you want your life to be. And I recommend you put it in a place where you can see it every single day, whether it's in a picture frame, whether it's on your office wall. If you're in your car all the time, driving to meetings all day, living on the road, take a picture of it, fold it up, put it in the visor of your car. And every time you stop for a meeting or a conversation with somebody or the next appointment, I want you to look at it, pick one picture on there and say, today, even in this next conversation, I'm going to get one step closer to just one of these pictures here. You get very
Mm.
purposeful. Take a picture of it, make it the wallpaper on every electronic device you own so that you can see it and you can look around and you can start to feel it every time you are surrounded by it. Too many people adopt what I call the Saturday morning infomercial chicken rotisserie approach, which is set it and forget it. You
Yeah.
remember those guys that were
Ron
pitching these
Pope,
things
Ron,
on
how can
Ron
you forget Ron
Popeil.
Popeil?
Oh my
That's
gosh.
right.
Him and all his gadgets. Set it and forget it. Too many people do that with vision boards. And then they say, well, my vision board didn't work. And I'll ask them, where is it? I don't know. You don't know where your vision board is? No, I made it, but nothing happened. And I've got a meme that I send to those clients. It's a skeleton sitting at a desk with its wrist bones under its skull bones, like it's just sitting there taking a little nap. And it says, waiting for my vision board to work. And that's what too many people do. So my approach is to stay very proactive, keep it very visible, make it a part of your day. My favorite client ever, her name is Lisa. And she came to one of my events one time. She had been to a few of them. And I saw her standing in the back. And I said, Lisa, where do you keep your vision board? She goes, oh, in my bathroom, right next to the mirror. And everybody laughed because her vision board's in her bathroom. I said, Lisa, why is it in your bathroom? She goes, hey, I'm there every day. While she was putting on her makeup and doing her hair, she would look just to the right of her mirror, which is where her vision board was, and she would pick her picture and her goal for that day and how she was going to take one step to get closer to just one of those goals.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
love how you
life
talk.
works.
Yeah, I love how you talk about the consistent action. It's a theme we talk about over and over on the podcast. It's a theme we hear from all the people that are on the podcast. And like we've talked about in our conversation, it's a very similar process for everyone. You go through life, life beats you up, you keep taking action, you figure things out that you never would have thought that life was going to lead you where it leads you. But if you take action, you usually wind up in a spot that's good for you if you just keep going. And so, you know what I call it the compound interest of life or the compound interest of habits, because people understand how compound interest works with money. The same thing works in your life. So if you keep taking consistent small actions, look, I would love it if there was a quantum leap or some escalator or some, you know, transportation machine that took you from point A right where you wanted to go. Unfortunately, it does not exist. Not how it works.
Yep.
But if you keep taking actions, you will get to where you want to be if you stick with it and you consistently take action for a long enough period of time. You can get there, but you've got to make up
Yeah.
your mind to do it. And then you actually have to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So like a vision board is not voodoo. It's not magic.
Yeah.
Like it's a map, like you talked about. It's a roadmap for your life.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that? Like is it messing up your plan of sitting on your couch and watching Netflix? Like explain to me why this is a bad thing, you know?
Yeah. And we do have actually that teleportation device. It's called People Who Win the Lottery. And I love to watch the shows of what happens to people who win the lottery,
Yeah, it's
usually
not
within
good,
about
is it?
3 to 5 years, because they have not become acclimated. You know, they got what they wanted, but they didn't become the type of person they needed to be able to be that person responsibly. So the metaphor that I use for this is visualization and vision boards and manifestation. It's a lot like riding one of the old wooden roller coasters. And I love the old ones.
Mm.
And there's one here in southern New Hampshire at a place called Canopy Lake. It's called the Yankee Cannonball, and it's like 1,000 years old at this point. But at the really low point of my life in June of 2003, the same exact day that my first wife and I decided we are getting divorced, I went to the amusement park because I had promised a friend I'd go there because the Chamber of Commerce had their monthly night, and it was at the amusement park. And I was miserable. And a friend of mine made me promise to go, so I did. And I hopped on the roller coaster because I just wanted to scream and vent. And I got in the second row of the front car. I'm looking up at the top of the first hill, and I busted out my old flip phone and took a picture of the top of the hill and just put it back in my pocket and didn't think of it again. But a while later, I realized, you know, visualization and vision boards in life and setting goals, it's like the old wooden roller coaster. You start off at the parking lot level, which is wherever you are right now. That's point A.
Mm.
You look up to the top of that first hill. Any one of your goals is at the top of that first hill because you can't enjoy the ride unless you get there. But on these old coasters, you can't start halfway up and you can't skip any steps. And you don't just push a button and get transported there in half a second. You've got to go click, 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 click. You've got to do all the work. You have to take all the steps. And every once in a while, you might feel like it's not getting any closer, but you look over your shoulder and you realize how much farther you are from where you started. So you're getting there. You're transforming to a person who's going to be able to get to the top of that first hill. And when you go over the top and you don't have to do any more work, and all of a sudden your eyes get real big and you get excited because you're thinking, I couldn't stop this ride now if I tried. All the momentum of me doing everything it took to get here, I just get celebrated for a little bit, scream my brains out, do whatever I want to do. And when you get to the end, if you're so excited from what just happened, what's the first thing you want to do? Get
Do it
on
again.
again.
Yeah.
Set another goal. And here's what I encourage all of my clients to do. When you set your next goal, I want you to look around when you get back in line. Look for somebody who's staring at the top of that hill looking like they're just so scared they might not actually get on the ride. And just ask them, is this your first time doing this? Yeah. Tell you what, why don't you come sit next to me? I want to tell you a story on the way up. And you get to coach and encourage them. So we all get to do that for other people. And I think that's one of the beauties of visualization. And what I get to do as a career is to hopefully inspire other people through my storytelling, through my examples, through everything I've survived in this life and taken notes on, that they can do it too, even if it's just a little goal to get them started. Once they get it over the top and they feel that adrenaline rush and the endorphins and the dopamine hit and everything, it is super addictive in a really good way. It's probably the best thing I've ever been addicted to, but in a really good way. And that's where all of my successes come from, is just adopting that mindset, not expecting instant results. Because again, it's who I become, not just what I want to get.
Yeah. So two comments. One, I absolutely love the roller coaster analogy. One of the reasons I love it is because when you think about that slow click, 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 click going up, that's a big part of the fun, is the anticipation of what's coming. And if you can build that same type of mental outlook in your life, falling in love with the work that you're doing to get to where you want to be, that's what successful people do. They fall in love with the process, not the end goal. And it takes a while to develop that mindset. But I learned that when I was playing baseball. I think we talked about this in our first conversation when we met a couple of weeks ago. I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and I just loved playing baseball. And so I would practice all the time. When I was 16, I rented a batting cage once a week in the off season by myself, drove a half hour to it and hit and threw in the batting cage all by myself. I did it because I wanted to do it because I loved doing it. And wouldn't you know it, I wound up getting a scholarship to play baseball and had a chance to play professionally. But it was because I loved doing what it took to get really good at that sport. So I just did it all the time. It became second nature to me. And so that roller coaster analogy of, hey, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome, right? It's such a good analogy. And then I love the lottery thing too, because I saw that a lot. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I just knew a lot of guys that wound up playing professional baseball because I was in that world
Mhm.
for quite a while. And you see it all the time with professional athletes that go broke. And the problem with the structure of athletics, the way it's set up, is that you get money. Now, don't get me wrong, you earn it because there's a lot of work that goes into that. However, it goes in reverse. Most people get wealthy over time, and so they learn to become a person that can handle wealth. Unfortunately, in the athletic world, all of a sudden you're rich and you're young and you're inexperienced and you're just not equipped to make great decisions. Now, there's some people who are surrounded by a good support system or they figure it out on their own, but those are unfortunately the exception and not the rule. And I think there's an analogy there, right? So it's like you talking about earlier in your life where, so I'm building the radio career and things keep going, station gets sold, this, that, and the other. You weren't ready to develop into the person that had the awesome relationship with Tina until that point in your life, right? So you weren't ready for that, even if it had come into your life at a different point, probably wouldn't have gone as swimmingly as it did when it did. So I love the way you talk about it, and I love the way you tie it all together with your story.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And Tina said one time, she goes, it hasn't been 21 years because we ran into each other when we were 25. I did not remember. And she named this bar in Manchester, New Hampshire, where we had apparently run into each other. I said, I don't remember. And she said, yeah, you were sitting at the bar by yourself, which I never did. So I have no idea why I would have been there for that, unless I was waiting for somebody or going to a comedy show or something. And she said, yeah, I came up to the bar to get drinks from me and the guy I was dating and another couple. But Tina was just one that it was just straight ahead. She did not look or engage or want any attention at all. And she said, you looked over to me and said, hey, snob. And I went, that is something I used to say. If somebody didn't notice me, if somebody I knew didn't see me, I would say, "Hey, snob." And then she started to share it. And I went, "Wait a second. I do remember." And then she said, "We only talked for a minute, but I just wanted to stay with you and leave with you that night instead of that jackass I was with because he
Mm.
was a jerk." And she said, "Can you imagine if that had happened?" I said, "No, because I was a completely immature idiot back then." I said, "It never would have lasted." I said, "Back then I was, the maturity of maybe a 9-year old." And she goes, "And how old are you now?" I said, maturely, I go, 12. but,
I'm
but at
making
least I'm
I'm
in
making
double
progress though.
digits. I'm in double digits. But it just, the timing would not have been right. And I'm so happy that we didn't wind up together as a couple at that time because I had just started in radio and was working 60 plus hours a week at the station and DJing weddings every weekend, which just is not a thing that's going to work in a relationship. And a lot of the people out there in their 20s and even early 30s now are like hustle and grind, hustle and grind, hustle and grind. Well, I got no problem with working hard, but I will never hustle and grind at the expense of all the other areas of my life again.
Yeah.
I destroyed it with that mindset. And I actually, when I finally fell apart and the wheels fell off the bus, I was in worse shape than when I started. So that experiment did not work for me. Maybe it works for other people. That's fine. You want to do that. Just remember all of those other people and what you claim to be most important. You can't just hit the pause button on everything. And that includes your health, your relationships, your connections with people, your happiness, and all of that. It may not be waiting for you when you declare the hustle and grind experiment of 10 or 20 years of just hard work. It may not be the ending in the golden years that you think they're going to be. So even if it's just minutes a day, pay attention to the rest of your life.
Yeah, I love that. Such a great message. And one of the things I tell people, because like I've done it, I've absolutely done it when I was building a career, and you think you need to do X, Y, and Z, and you need a certain amount of money, and you need a certain blah 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 blah. Insert
Mm-hmm.
material object or material possession here. Um, it seems really important at the time. However, when you think about it, I a couple of years ago I wound up I had to have unexpectedly a heart procedure. And so, I woke up one morning, I took my dog for a walk. I just didn't feel good. I went to the hospital and then, all of a sudden it's like, "Hey, we need to do something here pretty quick." And as they were I was always conscious. I was never like in a position where anything serious was happening to me, but it could have. And so they were wheeling me down the hallway. And I remember thinking, that was the only time I thought it during the whole process, too. I was never worried. I was never scared. I was never nervous. I probably should have been. I was too stupid to recognize it. But I remember thinking as they were wheeling me down the hallway, sometimes people don't wake up from this shit. Like, just statement of fact. Sometimes you go in for a procedure and you don't come out. Um, and I remember thinking, I hope that's not the case, but I had some, I got some pretty good shit in my life because who was there for me? It was my wife. It was my kids. It was the people that were close to me. Nobody from my fucking work was there. Nobody that I had stayed up nights and weekends to turn a report into was there. Nobody gives a shit about you except the people closest to you. So you got to think about that as you build your life. And I say it all the time, and I know I'm right, but I don't have any scientific evidence and there's no way to prove it, but I know I'm right. Life is about experiences and relationships. It's not about stuff. It's not about achievement. It's not about any of that shit. It's about relationships and experiences. And the sooner you can recognize that, the better you're going to be able to set your life up to maximize the value you get out of your relationships and experience the experiences that resonate with you. And I think that's one of the things I love about your the way you talk about visualization and vision boards and it being a roadmap. You choose it. You've got 8 categories. You say you get to pick which categories are more or less important to you. You get to decide what you do in those categories. But what you can't do is abdicate and hope someone else is going to make it happen for you. You've got to do the work. So set up what your goal is and then do the work. You talked about structures around that. How do you, so like you're essentially, the accountability guy. saying, great, well, how do you do it? How do you do that with your clients? How do you teach that on your vision boards?
One of the biggest things I'll say to them in conversations is to, like I said, tell me the story about this particular goal. What does it look like, feel like, sound like, smell like, taste like? Attach every sense. Tell me a story of what it's going to be like, not just getting it, but once you achieve it. And that's when I just love to watch them. If we're on Zoom, I just watch the screen and I watch them light up and I go, all right, now that's awesome. Where are you right now in relation to that? Okay, great. Let's figure out a way to track your results so that you're not just sitting there saying click in your head, but you're not really getting any closer to it. So if it's a dollar amount, if it's a vacation you want to go on, how much money is it going to cost? All right, let's figure out how long it's going to take you to save for it and this and that. Let's create a little, like thermometer, like you do for the fundraisers. If you
Mm.
want to have a certain amount of pounds on your scale by the end of the year, great. Tell me what that is and do a reverse. Start with the weight that you are now and work its way down towards the other weight. If there's a trip you want to go on besides the money, find me a picture that just shows what you want to see the minute you get off the plane and get there. Like, let's make this real and let's figure out a way for you to, if I say how are you doing on this goal, you can look right at your progress and you can describe to me what you've done, what you've already achieved, how much farther you have to go, who you have to meet or connect with, what skills you might have to learn or take on. Say in the example of somebody wants to have another job or advancement at their place of work in their career. All right, great. What do you have to do to get there? Who do you need to
Mm.
know? Who do you need to learn from? What certification might you need to do? What education do you have to receive? So we start to flesh out what the first hill of that roller coaster looks like and figure out ways to track it so that anytime I reach out, they can tell me about their progress. They can tell me what they've accomplished so far, what they've done. Because if your goals are just one and done and you've achieved them, you might want to just stretch yourself a little bit more and become that better
Right?
version of yourself. Don't just call me a week after and go, hey, Steve, I checked off all the items on my vision board. Well, good. Let's make another one. What's next level?
I'm
And go
good.
from
I'm all
there.
set.
Yeah. Hey, if you are, that's great. I have no problem with that. I'm not one of these people who's going to crack the whip and say, you got to be bigger, better, bolder, more badass. If
Mm.
you're happy, rock on, man. I think that's the greatest thing in the world you can be. In my life, in all those years with Tina, that was our number one thing, man. Even if it meant we did not see another soul for a week, we were happy together. Matter of fact, she
Mm.
gave me a card. I was traveling to a business event in Texas a couple of years ago, and I came home and there was a card, which is still on my desk. And it was as though she was being interviewed. There were several questions in the card, and she had to grab a handwrite the answers. And then one of the questions was, what's your favorite way to spend time with your partner? And she said, snuggled on the couch, cuddled up, watching TV after we make dinner together. And that's mine too. I mean, our love language is very similar. Little notes, cards, gestures, cuddling, snuggling, and all of that. And we did that every single day in some way. And that just, I mean, that actually got me very emotional to read that she felt that way. And it was amazing. And it's still on my desk. And I still talk to her every night and I still say, babe, if you can, I know I ask you every night, please come to me in a dream. I'll hold your hand and even give you a foot rub if you do. And that makes me happy
Yeah.
because, and this may sound very morbid to some people, but the day we landed in England, we had that amazing conversation down in the bar that night at the hotel. Give her her foot rub that night. And the next day, she passed away the next morning in our hotel room while I was down at the gym. I came back up. This was an hour after breakfast. We had breakfast together. I came back up and I found her unresponsive on the couch. Called down to the front desk. Somebody came running up. She had a pulse. We tried to revive her until the EMTs got there, but they worked on her for an hour. We're not able to save her.
Mm.
Now, things in England are very different from here. Her body was in that room with me for 10 hours before the coroners got there. And the police, of course, were there. They had to investigate and question me and everything was fine. They understood it was just complete, natural cause.
Yep.
But they left me alone with her every once in a while, and I would talk with her and just cry all over her. Her hair was soaked because I was just crying all over her.
Mm.
And I realized, baby, I didn't give you your foot rub last night. And I knelt down at her feet and gave her a foot rub because that was something I would have regretted if I didn't do. That was my final act of love to her, was to do that, to fulfill my daily requirements of what I felt I needed to bring to our relationship. So I encourage people to do the things like that that are so important to them on a daily basis. Don't let those things go. Those are the important things versus just the money and the material stuff.
Yeah, not that you need my approval in any way, shape, or form, but it makes perfect sense to me. That makes absolute perfect sense to me. There are things that you know are important, and like it doesn't matter if the rest of the world understands it. Like my wife drinks sparkling water, that bubbly sparkling water. That's
Yeah,
all she
yeah, we
drinks,
we
right?
still got some of that in the fridge.
Yeah, she loves it. And so we have actually a separate fridge where we just keep that water and I keep it stocked. She never has to buy it. She doesn't have to bring it in. It's always there for her. And it's just a little way of me showing that she's important to me, that I'm thinking about her, that she matters, that she matters to me more than anybody else in the world. And when you have that with someone, it doesn't matter if anybody else understands it. You know that it matters and they appreciate it. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. See, it's
Um,
one thing to know each other's love language, but like you are doing and like what we did, when you speak it fluently, oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful thing in the world. And something I discovered after I got home, I used to love to leave little notes for her all the time, sticky notes, because we
mm,
had 3 or 4 different colored notepads in our kitchen drawer. So if she was still upstairs getting ready in the morning, I would just write out just a quick little note, something silly, and stick it on her laptop. So when she opened it up, it was there. What I didn't know is that she kept them all over at that point, almost 7 years we had lived in this house. I found them all in a folder in her file drawer.
wow.
And I was blown away. I was just bawling my eyes out because I remembered writing them all. So I found this big picture frame in our basement and I picked 41 of them and just put them up almost like a mosaic and framed it. And it's hanging on the wall in her office right now next to the Peloton cycle that I ride every Monday through Friday morning.
Mm,
And it just reminds me that not only did I do something I loved, but she loved getting them so much that she kept them all.
right, right.
It doesn't matter what anybody else's rules are or behaviors are or all the alpha male bullshit that's out there that, guys say you can't be vulnerable and this and that. Tina used to love to say, "You realize you're the chick in this relationship, right?" Because I remembered all of our anniversaries, June 16th, email, July 21st, the I love you text, August 19th, the first time we saw each other. So I gave her cards on those dates every year, and she would always shake her head and say, "You realize you're the chick in this relationship." I said, "Hell yeah, baby. Do you mind?" She goes, "Nope." She even had socks made, 3 pairs of custom socks. One said June 16th, 2007. The other said July 21st, 2007. And the third pair said March 8th, 2018. That was the day we moved into this house,
Mm.
our first home together. So,
It's such good stuff. And look, I haven't said it yet, but I'm just really sorry for your loss. And I appreciate you being willing to talk so candidly about it. There's so many lessons to be learned about it. One of them is like, it's okay to be crushed by stuff like that. It's okay to feel devastated when those things happen. Like it doesn't matter if you're male or female. Like I think there's something wrong with you if that doesn't shake you to your core. But
mm,
I would also say, look at Steve 6 months later, still trying to do good things, still trying to reach out to other people, trying to help other people. And that's, I'm certain, one of the things that's helped him get through the last 6 months and bring some purpose and a little bit of sanity to what has had to have been just, a tough 6 months.
yeah, I would not wish the past 6 months on anybody, even
Mm.
even the people that I've claimed over the years are my worst enemies. I would not wish this on anybody. It is what people see and read on social media because I've been very open and honest about the journey, and which many people have reached out and said they appreciate it because they've navigated similar things. For everything you do see, there are things happening behind the scenes that I can't really talk about that have actually made this 10 times worse and 10 times more difficult. Can't really, you know, legally talk about them, but
Sure.
that's a reality of this. Unfortunately, when somebody passes, not everybody reacts in the same ways. Let's just
Yeah.
leave it at that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, as as it relates to the visualization and vision boards, um, what's the best way for you to describe it to people? The importance of it. I'm not asking the question very well because I don't want to cover ground
Mhm.
that we've already covered. So let's say it differently. What's for people that are skeptical? How do you explain it in a way that makes sense, or at least has a chance to make sense to them?
Yeah, I'll ask them, what did you want to be when you were younger? Who did you want to be around? What kind of activities did you want to do? Did any of those things ever happen for you? Because not everybody gets to do what they wanted to do. I get that. But sometimes it's a little bit of an offshoot. So, what I'm trying to find from them is an example of how it's already worked. They just didn't know what to call it.
Hmm.
And I'll say, oh, that's, exactly what you were doing there. Maybe you just didn't understand what was happening when you did it. You say, well, I wanted to drive, this vehicle. I wanted it in this color. And all of a sudden, of course, reticular activating system, we start to see these things everywhere. Once we've identified them, all of a sudden they show up. Those are opportunities. So when we get clear about something and all of a sudden they start to show up and then we make a decision, take an action to get them and make it happen, that's visualization.
Hmm.
And so many people go, oh, I thought it was just like the DVD version of The Secret, like a genie in a magic lamp wishing for stuff. No, that's not it. So what I try to do is just show them how they're already actually doing it. And then I just say, well, look, I've got a way that you can do that in all areas of your life, maybe a little more focused and aware now that you can actually knock these things down a lot more efficiently and more directly in your life if you're interested to learn how to do that. Some people say, I'm fine the way I am. Great, no problem. I'm not one of those people who stomps up and down and said, like a TV preacher, I can change your life. No, everything I teach is just what worked for me. And part of what really pisses me off sometimes about my industry are these gurus that say, this is the secret to every bit of success you need in your life. You got to have this. And then a
Yeah.
year later, they've got the new one that is the must have. And then you got to go to their 3-day platinum event halfway around the world. Then you got to sign up for their exclusive, mega platinum level coaching program to get what you really want in life. I've got one program. It was called Vision Board Mastery. It's currently being rebranded. We're working on it today. It's going to be called Ultimate Life Vision because it's so much of it is beyond the board that in working with my coaches and my mentors, one of them said, "Vision, why do I need a thing to teach me how to build a vision board?" And I explained to her what the program is all about. And she said, well, you need to rename it because it's so far beyond the board. It's ridiculous. People can buy a vision board kit on Amazon for $38. And my program has gone for as high as $1,000. And people say, Steve, I can get this for $38. I said, great, buy it. And a year from now, you tell me how that worked out for it. And if you want my program, I'll take $38 off the total.
I love it.
That's as, that's as high pressure as I get with people. And of course, I get the calls back because people say, well, I bought the kit. Yeah, what was in it? A bunch of pictures of stuff that I didn't even want. And I said, yep, there's somebody else trying to tell you what you want. Tell me how that worked out for you
Yeah.
versus my system of you decide what you want and you brainstorm and you figure it out and you tell your stories. And so, yeah, it's a lot of just showing people they're already using it in a way, but I've got a very more direct and efficient and permanent in some cases, or at least longer lasting approach than many other people that just say, create a vision and dream big. What a bunch of crap that is. I've
Yeah.
literally
Cool.
been in the audience at events, maybe I hadn't spoken yet or had already spoken. Somebody gets up there and goes, I want you to dream big. And everybody's like wetting themselves, applauding for this person, going, hang on, let me write that down. Dream big. I'm shaking my head going, are you freaking kidding me? And somebody said one time, well, Steve, if Tony Robbins ever invited you to speak at one of his events, you'd go right along that line. I said, yeah, you think so? Call Tony and tell him to put me on stage. Because I'm not afraid to follow anybody because I know who I am and what I talk about. And I'm
Yeah.
confident in my approach and all this and that. I said, if I was on stage at a Tony event, here's how I'd come out. Hey, Tony, thank you so much for having me here. Hey, DJ, turn off the music. Fog machine guy, turn off the fog machine. Laser guy, turn those lasers off.
Fog machine.
House lights, come up to half strength. I'm going to walk out. I'm going to sit my butt on the edge of the stage, dangle my feet off, and I'm going to ask 12,000 people if they'd like to hear why I do what I do the way I do it. And I'll tell my story that I'm a speaker because other people believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I
Mm.
believe in all of you. If you so desire, in the time we have together, I'm not going to pitch any products. I'm just going to share with you the stories of what worked for me. I'm going to explain the mechanics of it and how you can apply it in your life. And if you leave here today, you wake up tomorrow morning and you take one more action towards a very clearly defined outcome in your life, then our time together was a massive win. Okay, good. Let's go. And then just start telling my stories and sharing my lessons and tips, tactics, and strategies. And that's it. And I aim for the back of the room too. I don't just play to the front row. It's great when people want to sit in the front, you get to make eye contact, but I want to reach the people who are out in the back who don't even think they deserve to be in that room, who are doubting themselves and just came because, well, they may as well try something. I want to reach those people because not that many years ago, that's where I used to sit
Mm.
with zero hope, with zero self-esteem, horrible self-talk, beating the crap out of myself on a regular basis, saying how much my life sucked and that I was a loser for what I had done to it. Now I speak directly to those seats because those are the people that need it the most. And
Yeah.
I won't get off that stage until I've given them some shred of hope that keeps them from running out the door and back to their regular lives.
Mm. Well, and that so like the goals are so important, and I actually did a podcast episode on this that it's important to set goals because you have to have something to shoot at. You have to know where you're going. You have to have some type of vision for what you want to happen. However, and I use the NFL as an analogy because there's a lot of football fans out there. I'm a sports guy, like it makes sense. The difference between the Philadelphia Eagles, who won the Super Bowl, and the other 32 teams or other 31 teams isn't that the Eagles set the goal of winning the Super Bowl better than the other 31 teams. It's that they took step after step after step consistently throughout the 7 months that they were together as a team, starting in July when they go to camp and culminating and hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in February. They executed towards their goal better than any other team in football. So the goal is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's not why they're holding up the trophy. It's because of the actions. And I love how you preach exactly what I just said and provide a systemic and methodical way to do it. So I love your I love your term blue collar woo, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy for people to think, this is foo-foo stuff. I I took the first yoga class I took. Um, I lifted weights. I did all the traditional. I've been in weight room since I was 12 years old. So like I've been in very masculine environments my entire life. Um, but I've never felt better than after a yoga session. And I don't actually like yoga. Like I don't like doing it. Like I like lifting weights. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed physical conditioning. I don't actually like yoga, but I feel so good after, better than any other workout that I've ever done. And one of the things in almost all yoga classes is there's voice stuff at the end. So you'll do ohms or you'll do chants or you'll do meditations, but you'll do them out loud because the way you've kind of conditioned your body and the vibrations in your body. And there was a real masculine guy teaching a yoga class, and he says, we're going to do ohms where you just basically say ohm and then hold it for as long as you can. And he said, open your mind up a little bit. I know it sounds a little far east stuff, but God damn it, do it. Like it just was.
Love that. Because he knows the voice that's in your head at the time because
Yes.
he had his first experience. You don't
Yes.
listen to Metallica while you're doing yoga. It just doesn't work. Now, weight room, sure, why not? I'm a classic rock guy. I dig, Metallica and a lot of the 70s, 80s, 90s stuff
Yeah,
and
me too.
2000s rock. But yeah, for yoga, it's a bit different. I've taken a couple of yoga classes on the Peloton platform because we've got
Hmm.
the membership, and those are hard.
Yes.
I did a 5 minute one time, and I'm like, oh my God, like I was just felt like a pretzel. But like you said, it's this great, amazing it does this great, amazing thing for your mind and your body. You're relaxed, you're flexible, and you're decreasing the odds that you're going to hurt yourself by doing something extreme.
Yes, the payoff is worth it. I don't like the
Yeah.
process, but I love the result. And
Yeah.
it's so to me, it's totally worth doing for what it's worth. But so Steve, one of the things we do is well, I like to just open the floor up to make sure we don't miss anything. So, is there a question I haven't asked you that you want to make sure our listeners hear, or is there a subject we haven't talked about yet that you want to make sure our listeners hear? So, in essence, I'm opening the floor to you to say or talk about whatever you think we should talk about.
Yeah. One of the greatest practices that I've adopted now, I've been doing this for over 14 years, is I start off pretty much every day putting pen to paper in a gratitude journal. And I believe the greatest gift you can give to your future self is something you're grateful for today. And I don't mean writing down, I'm thankful for my house, thankful for my partner, thankful for my health. Don't broad brush. Be specific. It can be related to those things, but be very specific. And I do this. My practice is I write down the date and I write down words good stuff. And then I write one, two, three. And in less than a line each, I write my three favorite moments from the previous day. Now, what that does is it plants a seed because I only give myself one line, but I write it as emotionally connected and as descriptively as possible so that even years later, if I open to that page, I will know exactly what I was talking about.
Mm,
Because when you're feeling like a loser and you're feeling down and you're feeling like you screwed up and you put your life in a really tough spot and you screwed up again, so you're just a dumbass, go back and start looking at your gratitude journal for all the wins, even the littlest moments of wins you stacked up and said, wait a minute, I'm still this same person. Am I going through a tough time right now? Yeah. Did I maybe take an action that wasn't very well thought out and kind of screwed me a little bit? Yeah. But you know what? I'm still this person. And I've had people say, well, Steve, there are some days there's nothing to be grateful for. To which I say, you need to look harder. Because on October 4th, 2018, the morning after my dad died, I still had something to be grateful for because I
mm.
still have that page and I've shared that page on social media. I am grateful that I arrived in time to be holding his hand when he passed. That was the thing. After, at that point, the most significant loss of my life, I was happy that I got to be there when he passed.
Yep.
And there was another memory that involved my dad from a year prior to that. And I was on a podcast. I was on a show just like this. And I happened to have, I don't even know why it was here in the recording studio. I had an old one of my gratitude journals. And the host said, now, really, Steve, come on. You can remember something years later that you wrote down? I said, yeah. And I opened it up and I started laughing. And here's the entry. Got Nellie home, avoided the cop. Nellie was my dad's plow truck. Unregistered, illegal, uninsured, and it was just the one we used to plow his driveway. Well, it broke and we had to bring it to the mechanic. So in the dead of night, we drove it down to his mechanic and we got it there. Well, the next night we had to bring it home and it was about 7 o'clock. So it wasn't quite dark yet, but it wasn't super, 100% light.
Yep.
So my father said, you go first and I'll be right on your bumper. And I said, okay, and we'll get Nellie home. Get to a rotary. Who is waiting there at the next entrance to the rotary? A cop.
Hey, trooper, right?
No, it was just a town cop, but it was one of the
Gotcha.
towns
Yeah.
notorious for giving tickets, Goffstown, New Hampshire.
Oh yeah.
Who has the right of way? I do. Who rolls down the window and says, go ahead, sir? Me. And he goes, hey, thank you, buddy. And he just goes and he takes off. And we are now essentially chasing a cop in an unregistered vehicle. I mean, had I gone, he would have been right on my butt, pulling me over for a ticket. So the next morning I wrote, got Nellie home, avoided the cop. And I busted out laughing on this podcast and then explained that story to the guy. I said, if you do it right, and you really write down a moment and how you felt, what it meant to you, or something descriptive, or who was involved,
Mm.
you might be amazed that you're filling up this file cabinet. If you remember the movie Bruce Almighty, when Jim Carrey's character had the filing cabinet of everybody's prayers and wishes, and
Oh,
it was like 100 feet long, and he like finally slammed the whole thing. That's what you're going to give yourself. And that's what's going to be in your mind and in your heart. All this evidence that you're living this amazing existence every day. Even the morning after Tina died, I had things I was grateful for. I was grateful she still had a pulse when I found her. I was
Mm.
grateful for all the people who showed up and tried. I was grateful for the hotel management who basically adopted me. They treated me like a king for the 2.5 weeks I was there. Every employee knew who I was and what my situation was and bent over backwards to make the most difficult time in my life as at least stable as it could be. And anything I needed, they were there. And when I get home, I wrote down a whole bunch of those gratitudes from those 2.5 weeks. And there's something to be grateful for every day. And if you're just going to write my house, my health, and my partner every day, get a potato, carve that into it, and get an ink pad and save yourself some trouble. But I think my way works better.
I love that. There's something to be said too. Actually did a podcast episode on this, but the act of putting pen to paper is therapeutic, and it enables creativity that wouldn't otherwise exist. So I completely agree with Steve. What I'm saying here is don't type it out. Don't type it on a computer. Don't type it into your phone. Actually write it down in a book with a pen on paper. It matters a lot. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up. For what it's worth, I completely 100% endorse what Steve's talking about here. It's like a great, great thing to do.
Yeah, and it
So
actually
such good
uses
stuff.
both sides of your brain when you
Mm,
do that. When you put pen to paper and you're actually physically doing that, it uses both sides of your brain to do that. And that's a good thing.
yeah, for sure. Um, God, what was that? I just had a question for you. What was it? Oh, if people want to work with you, how do they do it? What's the
Yep.
best way to get in
You,
touch with you?
you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn most often under Steve Gamlin, Gamlin. And you can find me online at stevegamlinspeaker.com.
Excellent. Guys, we'll leave that like we always do in the show notes so you don't have to go searching for Steve's business or to get in touch with Steve. We'll put it in the show notes so you can just go down there, click on it. It'll get you right to Steve. So, Steve, so appreciative that you're so willing to come on and talk about this. You do such a great job. I love how you tell the stories. It's not shocking to me at all that you were highly successful in your Toastmaster experience. And we'll stay in touch because I'd love to have you back on at some point and just it's a great conversation. There's a conversation to be had around classic rock because I am a huge classic rock guy. I know you said you knew more trivia about classic rock than anyone. I might be able to give you a run for money on that, so we could have a good conversation around that, as well as just updating on where everything's going with our lives because things change, and I've never met someone who I wasn't better off from knowing them, So it's one of the things I love about doing the podcast. I get to meet such great people like you and just increase kind of my circle of friends and acquaintances and resources. And just really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much for taking the time.
I appreciate being invited. I've been on over 300 shows all around the world. And I got to tell you, this has been one of the most effortless, and I mean that in the best way possible,
Mm,
effortless conversations I've ever been a part of. And I mean, we're, like you said, we're within a handful of birthday candles apart. So we've walked some of the same miles and listened to a lot of the same music that just continues to bring us joy and inspire us. And we both look for the best in every day and we bring the best of ourselves. So I appreciate being here. This was just phenomenal. And I do hope that anything that I shared provides as much value as possible for your viewers and listeners. Because if you're out there watching or listening to this and you feel like you're sitting in that back row seat, I hope you seriously got something good out of this that you can apply in your life.
for sure. And if that's you, reach out to Steve. Don't fucking sit on your hands. Reach out. He can help. Get in touch with him.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Love it. Thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night. Okay, guys. Like we said, Steve did such a great job. He's so eloquent and very touching how he speaks about the things in his life, both the good things that have happened in his life and the tough things that have happened in his life. I love how much he loves his wife, and he speaks so lovingly of her, of his relationship with his father, and very candidly about things that have not gone well in his life, what he's learned from those, how he put those learnings into practice in his life. So just we're very fortunate and very honored to have Steve on the podcast. Like we talked about there at the end, we can have him on again. He's a great guest, and we'd love having him back. So we'll do that again. So look, James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are available there. Links to all the social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. And as always, please like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. We have awesome guests on. They have great information. They have great ways to help you live the life you want, achieve the goals you're after, live a meaningful, purposeful life. You don't want to miss the next guest, so make sure you check out the next episode. We will see you there.